Hey everyone, long time no RWBY talk, but I'm back, at least for now, and we'll probably be making a few more RWBY videos after Volume 6 ends. But I wanted to make this theory now since I want to get at least one video out before we go on our long hiatus. So today's RWBY theory video is on our favorite silver-haired boy, Mercury Black. If you've been following along with the RWBY theory videos I've made so far, you might be noticing a trend of who the subjects of my videos are. I'm sorry, I can't help myself. I just find all these guys really interesting, but I'm sure I'll diversify my RWBY content eventually. And I do want to make another video about Adam after as well, cause you know what happened to him. I'm totally fine with that theory not being right, since what we got is extremely intriguing, but that's a topic for another video. Today I'm talking about Mercury, and the possibilities of what his semblance could have been. In Volume 6, Chapter 9, we learned that Mercury used to have a semblance, but it was stolen from his father in order to mold him into the perfect assassin. That brings up a ton of questions that I would love to discuss. Mercury is a pretty interesting character in my opinion, and a lot of it is based on his potential. I really didn't care too much about him until I listened to the absolutely amazing song, I'm the One, and fully understood the lyrics. We get a clear picture of Mercury's life before joining Cinder, and it was pretty easy to see it was a terrible one. He was born in a nightmare to a murderer, and despite not having a traditional weapon, he's become extremely strong. His life before killing his father was defined by the hate and beatings he received from him. All we knew without the song was that he murdered his father, who was likely an alcoholic. But with it, a whole new layer of complexity was added to Mercury's character. And the episode Lost from Volume 6 not only gave us Mercury confirming these aspects concerning his childhood, but we learned just how truly bad it was. As I mentioned before, we learned that Mercury lost his semblance because of his father. Not only was Mercury beat up every day by this man, but he also had the power to take a person's semblance away. That is a huge advantage for an assassin, but meant an even worse life for Mercury as everything was taken away from him. It's probably unlikely that Marcus could use the powers he stole, as we know Mercury did end up killing him. I want to quickly bring up the line where Mercury says that he has no gun in the song. Yes, it is true that he doesn't have an actual gun like most of the other characters in the show, since his boots and legs have firing mechanisms. But I think it would also be interesting if this show was referring to him not having a semblance. Despite not having one, he still has managed to become just as strong, and in some cases stronger, than everyone else. Now the timeline of events is unclear, and I hope they explain this better eventually, but I'm honestly confused what happened on the night Marcus and Mercury had their last fight. Either Marcus forced Mercury into surgery and removed his legs, but while they were still healing Mercury fought back, which would explain the blood and bandages. Or their fight messed Merc's legs up so much that they needed to be removed. I'm guessing it's the former, since he already had bandages on them, meaning they were likely just removed. Yet Mercury was still able to defeat his father. His father took everything, his semblance, his legs, and most importantly, a chance at normal life. Mercury believes that there is no other possible life for him other than serving under Salem. It does not appear he actually truly enjoys what he does, but killing is all he has ever known, so he sees no reason to leave. So now that I gave a bit of a recap on what we know about Mercury, let's talk about everything that we should take into account when thinking about what his semblance could be and what it means to have your semblance taken from you. The most obvious source of inspiration to look for regarding his semblance is the character he is based off of. And for Mercury, that is, well, Mercury, the Roman god, also known as Hermes. Besides his name, Mercury's emblem is literally a shoe with wings on it, which is this god's symbol. This god was immortal and had the ability to run at very fast speeds, as well as fly. In addition, Mercury was the patron god of thieves, which is very ironic. The character in RWBY, based off of him, also got his semblance stolen from him. So while speed would definitely be a good choice for Mercury's semblance, RWBY basically has that covered since hers is literally called speed. I do think him having the ability to fly in some ways would be a good option. This would work well with his illusion. And to reference I'm the One again, we learned that he was ripped from the earth and exposed to the sun. This sounds like the story of Icarus, who was given wings to fly, but flying too close to the sun caused him to dissolve, and he fell into the ocean and drowned. In Mercury's case, that would parallel his father taking his semblance and causing him even more misery. His wings were clipped the moment he learned to fly, which is simply terrible. Also, something interesting I found while looking for stuff about Hermes is that in the game God of War 3, the character you play as, Kratos, fights Hermes and removes his boots by cutting off his legs. Sound familiar? Perhaps that was part of the inspiration for Mercury no longer having natural legs. For the god, it was these sandals that gave him the ability to go fast and fly. I'm sure that symbolism was intentional since Mercury's legs were taken away. Yet, at least according to Mercury, Marcus could have given him his semblance back. So I don't think him losing his legs removed his semblance, but Marcus wanted to reinforce the point that his son was weak, and thought that this would make him stronger. Flight would have given Mercury the freedom he needed to get away from his father and escape his life of abuse. So Mercury having the ability to fly is a very good option, but maybe it could have been teleportation, since in some ways that is very similar to being fast. But his father said his semblance made him weak and was a crutch. What kind of semblance would an assassin not appreciate? Surely flight or any of these other options would be a huge advantage. Oftentimes a semblance gives a way for a character to survive in a situation that would have otherwise killed them, and shows their motivations in life. Without the ability to mask his emotions from Grimm, Ren would not have survived the Grimm attack. And despite Nora explaining how she found her semblance in a very comedic fashion, being struck by lightning likely would have killed her had it not made her unlock her semblance. For Yang, we see that she can take whatever pain an enemy gives her and uses it to make herself stronger. As a child, she never knew her birth mother and lost the one she called mom at an early age. She has been through a lot in life, as people constantly underestimate her and are quick to judge, but by overcoming all of this, it's a reflection of her semblance. And for one final example, we have Adam's semblance, which is like Yang's, but he's lucky enough where he doesn't have to feel pain to hurt others with his semblance. Most likely there was some event that caused him so much pain his aura made it so that he would never have to get hurt again. Of course, the talk about Adam is for another day. With all that in mind, Mercury's semblance was more likely than not something that could protect against the beatings of his father. Maybe it could make people freeze in place, or slow them down significantly. Or it could have been something more defensive like a shield. Perhaps he could have been intangible or gained a liquid form, kinda like how the element Mercury is liquid at room temperature. Or he could simply become invisible. But who knows, maybe it was just super speed and I'm thinking about this too hard. Finally, I would like to discuss what it means to Mercury to have his semblance taken from him, or I suppose for any person in RWBY. As we have learned, a semblance is a more tangible projection of one's aura. Aura, for those that may have forgot, is basically a shield created by the soul. And as I have stated before, a semblance seems to be the body's way of protecting an individual in a way that matches their personality traits. It is clear that Mercury still has aura, even with his semblance being taken from him, or else he must have some other magical way of protecting himself from all the damage that he has taken. So that means the semblance can be removed from a person's aura, yet the aura stays intact. There is no clear distinction between the two yet we know this is possible. But with all this considered, it doesn't make sense that one can completely remove a semblance. These two things are so tied together, I don't know how one can be removed without the other also being removed. That's why I'm inclined to believe that Marcus simply sealed Mercury's semblance away. After all, we don't know the specifics of Marcus's power, and with that, he's the only one who could easily open it back up. But maybe I'm wrong and it was in fact legitimately stolen, and Mercury no longer has the possibility of getting it back. But regardless, the loss of a semblance can be equated to losing a part of your soul, and sometimes the depiction of losing a soul is equated to losing a moral compass. These people begin to lack empathy and have little issue with hurting others. I have no idea if this would be an actual reason for why Mercury acts the way he does, or if this is just the result of him living in the mountains with his abusive father for most of his life. Or maybe I'm just thinking too deep about it. But let's face it, he's not the most interesting character. For the most part, he's just kind of been there. Like I said, I really didn't care about him, besides his design and unique fighting style, until I listened to I'm the One. But I know he has potential to become a very interesting character, and the development given to him in Volume 6 is a good start. So one question remains. Can Merc get his semblance back? I want to say yes, because it would be cool to see again, and could be the key to him getting redeemed. Or, as much as I don't want to say it, it is very possible that he will never get it back, since we don't know any sort of magic or ability that could give it back to him. Yet, since it took this long for the audience to learn about this aspect of him, I do not imagine that he is super motivated to try and get it back, likely because he doesn't think it's possible. I'm not sure what's in store for Mercury's future. Like I said, I'm hoping he does get a redemption of some sort along with Emerald and potentially Hazel, and I hope he gets his semblance back, but that just may be wishful thinking. Now, I've been talking about Mercury for a long time now, and he's a pretty minor character, so I think it's time to end this video. But what do you think? What was Merc's semblance? Do you think he'll get it back, and will he ever be redeemed? Let me know in the comments section, and if you enjoyed this video, make sure to subscribe and check out my theory video I made about Jean. It's a bit outdated, but a lot of the questions about his ancestors still remained. And if you want to talk to me and a bunch more RWBY fans, consider joining our Discord. Once you join, make sure to ask a mod for the role to be able to access the RWBY chat. Finally, if you would like to help support the channel, consider joining our Cartooniverse Amino fan club or become a patron. Hopefully I get to do another RWBY video in the next few months, but until then, have an animated day.